Hey, and welcome to Love Lake Norman and our online worship experience. My name is Ethan, and I'm so glad that you are here today. Love Lake Norman is a church that exists to help people find and follow Jesus. We do that by a lot of ways, but one way is this: you can belong before you believe. So we are so glad you are here, regardless of what you believe, your past experience with church. We are glad that you are here today. We are continuing a series called Love Your Neighbor, and we've had some practical and helpful tips along the way, and we're going to have another one today. So stick around for our entire service. It's going to be great. Thank you so much for being here.
Shame is a prison as cruel as a grave. Shame is a robber and he's come to take my name. Oh, love is my redeemer, lifting me up from the ground. Love is the power where my freedom song is found. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. When I hear that trumpet sound, I'm gonna rise up out of the ground. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. Oh, fear is a liar with a smooth and velvet tongue. Oh, fear is a tyrant, he's always telling me to run. Oh, love is resurrection. Oh, love is a trumpet sound. Love is my weapon, I'm gonna take my giants down. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. could hold this body down.
God says through the prophet Isaiah, in Isaiah 57, he says, I dwell in the high and holy places, but also here on earth with those who are spirit crushed, those who are defeated, those who are low. And what I do is I put a new spirit inside of them, and I lift up their head. And this is a song from the heart of our church. So when you feel most abandoned, most lonely, most defeated, and you think God is so far away, He's actually right there beside you. And that's why we sing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wake me up, oh God, and make me come alive. Every ray of light, yes, every cloud aside, reminds me from the high and holy places you are living here with me. When I find myself surrounded, lift me to my feet. And I am praying for revival. Let your spirit live in me. 'Cause there is nothing, nothing, nothing like you, God. There is nothing, nothing, nothing like you, God. No. And in the darkest place, I am reassured that every broken heart and every tear is yours. Remind me from the high and holy places you are living here with me. When I find myself surrounded, lift me to my feet. I am praying for revival. Let your spirit live in me. 'Cause there is nothing, nothing, nothing like you, God. There is nothing, nothing, nothing like you, God. There's no stopping you, there's no stopping you, Father. Won't you let your kingdom come? You are breaking through, always breaking through. Nothing in this world is like your love. There's no stopping you, there's no stopping you, Father. Won't you let your kingdom come? You are breaking through, always breaking through. Nothing in this world is like your love.
Hey, we are so glad that you are here today. Hey, if you have questions about who we are as a church or ways to get connected, you can go to our website, lovelkn.org, and you can find out information about us and ways to get connected. There's even a connection card. So if you're brand new or you've been around for a few weeks and you've yet to get connected, you can fill that out today. Now, also on our website is a give button. We want to be a church that's known by our generosity, and we want to invite you to be a part of that. So you can go to lovelkn.org/give, or you can text a dollar amount to 84321. And let me just say, thank you for your generosity. Your generosity fuels everything that we do here. Now, we hope that you enjoy today's worship experience.
Our world is full of social unrest right now. We have a lot of health concerns, obviously, and we thought it would be a great time to do this series. Everybody agrees that one of the central themes of Christianity is love your neighbor. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what Jesus says about that, and then let's do something about it. We have been talking about loving your neighbor for the past couple of weeks. Last week, we talked about how loving other people is actually a debt that you owe, which is a really almost strange way of looking at it, but it is the way that Paul in the Bible talks about it, and it encourages us to look at loving other people. It's not just about, hey, I'm going to love people around me if I want to, but he says, that is our debt. And if you're somebody who has decided to follow Jesus, and we never assume that everybody who's connected with Love Lake Norman has. We know that there are people on all kinds of spiritual journeys and trying to figure out what they believe. And so if that's where you are, we say, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. This is a place for you as well. But if you're somebody who has crossed the line and you said, yeah, I follow Jesus, all of your debts have been paid. I mean, that's what the New Testament over and over and over again says. All of your debts have been paid by him. It's through grace. You have a relationship with him. But we have this one remaining debt, and it is to love other people, love people around us. But my question about that, and maybe it's your question too, is what about loving the people who are hard to love? Like, what about loving the people who really are difficult to love? What about loving the people who don't even like you very much, let alone love you? Or what about the people who say the same thing about you? What about even loving people who you would consider your enemies? I was thinking about this and the different confrontations that I've had, because we've all had different things go on in our lives in terms of confrontations with people, different altercations, different fights. When I was 5 years old, I was on a playground. I can remember it very, very clearly. I was at White Memorial Presbyterian Church at their preschool. And this kid, I was just minding my own business. This kid picks up a rusty tin can and for no reason at all, just throws it at me and hits me in the head with this rusty tin can. And my eye, right above my eye, started bleeding. Like, it kind of cracked open, started bleeding. I started crying. They took me to the emergency room. I had to get stitches. I had to get a tetanus shot. And I didn't even do anything. I was just minding my own business. The word enemy in our world has a really strong meaning, and unless you've been in active military service, which we have some people in our church who are or who have been, then you've probably never been in a situation where someone is actively trying to kill you, but you really have likely dealt with people who disagree with you regularly, people who argue with you constantly, people who annoy you consistently, or people who bully you persistently. And I'm not even talking about your family right now. I've had my share of confrontations with people throughout the course of my life. You have too. What about people, for instance, who are politically different than you? If you're a Democrat today, do you view Republicans as the enemy? If you are a Republican today, answer this honestly, do you view Democrats as your enemy? I heard Pastor Derwin Gray say this last week, and I think it's really an appropriate thing to say. He said a Christian Democrat actually has more in common with a Christian Republican than a Christian Democrat has with a non-Christian Democrat, and vice versa, like the whole thing reversed as well. But we don't tend to see it that way. Now, this is a place, and what we're going to talk about today, this is a place where Christianity sets itself apart from every other religion, from any other religion, in how Jesus says to deal with people who are your enemies. And I will be honest, what he says is really hard to do. It just is. It's difficult to do this, but he has a reason for this, and I want to talk to you about that today because we need to understand why he says what he says about this. It can be absolutely life-changing for you. Here's what he says. He says this, "But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you." So does that mean I have to love the kid who threw the tin can at my head and made me get a tetanus shot for no reason at all when I was 5 years old? I have to pray for him. I have to bless him. I didn't feel like doing that when I was 5, and there's a lot of situations even today where I don't feel like doing that now. But Jesus is starting this passage where he's setting us up for something here that is really, really important, something life-altering if I will actually do it. Not only for the other person, not only for the kid who threw the can or the person that you struggle with, life-changing for you, life-changing for me. So Jesus keeps on building his case. He says, here's how it works. If somebody slaps you on one cheek, turn to them the other also. Wow. If someone takes your coat, don't withhold your shirt from them. Give to everyone who asks you. And if anyone takes what belongs to you, don't demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. A little bit later on in my life, when I was in 6th grade, so I was probably 12 years old, we used to play out in the neighborhood a lot. We would play football in people's backyards and our friends, and we would have this kind of group of kids that would go around the neighborhood and just play together. And this guy named David, who was the brother of one of my friends, the older brother, he used to pick on me a lot. And I was in 6th grade, and he was in 8th grade, and I don't know if you've ever walked into a middle school, and maybe you've had a 6th grader and you walk in on one of those first days to a parent meeting or whatever, and you see some huge kid off to the side and he's got a beard, and you're thinking, oh, that's probably one of the teachers, and somebody else says, no, that's he's an 8th grader. That's the size difference that you get between 6th graders and 8th graders, right? And so David was this big guy, and he would pick on me, and I was stubborn, and I just didn't know when to stop sometimes either. And so somehow or the other, we ended up tackling each other, and basically I ended up letting him put me in a headlock for 30 minutes, and he was just pounding on me. I mean, it was forever in the backyard, and I will remember that day forever. Now, maybe you haven't been in a physical altercation lately. I have not, and I'm really glad. But maybe you've been in a verbal one. Maybe you've been in a verbal altercation with somebody recently, or somebody's put you in a mental or emotional chokehold, and they've got you there right now. Jesus says a really difficult thing. He says, if somebody hits you, turn the other cheek to them. If they take your coat, give them your shirt. This is difficult. This is revolutionary kind of stuff here. He says, give to everyone who asks, don't demand back what they have taken. And then he gives us what we call the golden rule. He says, do unto others what you would have them do to you. Why does he even say that? Why does he have to say that? It's because the world teaches us to do the opposite. And it's because the world he was living in, the world that the disciples and the people around the disciples were living in, did not do that. And it's the world that we live in too. Our world does not do that. Around us, the saying is more like this, do to other people as you want to do to them. Do to them what they do to you. Maybe that's the saying, but what he is saying is this: do good for those who won't do good for you. Do good for those who will not do good for you. Again, though, I got to ask this question, why? Right? Why should we do that? Why should I do that? Nobody else, and this is especially if you're new around this Christian faith, if you're new to believing in Jesus and you're exploring, or you're just trying to figure out what it all means, doesn't it sound weird? Nobody else around me acts like that. If I act like that at school, then I'm going to get beat up a lot. That's what you may be thinking. Or if I just act like that, I'm not going to get the advantages that other people have, and I'm going to get left behind. If I act like that in my job or in the boardroom at work, I will never get ahead. Like, you don't understand. I will never get ahead if I act like that. But as Jesus always does, he always does this. He gets to the heart of it. And at the heart of this thing that he's telling us to do is actually your heart. It's actually my heart. He's always pointing us there. He's always getting to the underlying motivation, and he takes us there with his words. He says this, he keeps going. He says, if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners expecting to be repaid in full. And he just keeps on going. Even sinners do this. And what he means by sinners is everybody. He's like, everybody, the world, everybody. You see all these people in society, everybody does that. What good is it to you? Everybody loves the person who loves them. He says, that's easy. How does that set you apart? It doesn't. It doesn't. I remember another conflict that I had. It wasn't when I was a little kid. It wasn't when I was a teenager. It was when I was an adult. And it didn't happen in a playground. It didn't happen in somebody's backyard. It happened in a boardroom. It happened while I was sitting around a table. And I remember having my honesty questioned. I was working at a different church. I remember sitting around this boardroom. I had my honesty questioned. I had my ability to do my job questioned. And I had some things that were said about me that I just knew weren't true. What do you do in a situation like that? I bet some of you, some of my friends here and some of the adults who are watching this, I bet you've had a similar situation in your workplace where somebody said something about you or you've had to try to defend you. What do you do? Do you defend yourself or not? And I would say in that moment for me, Christian or not, pastor or not, the temptation is to hit back. The temptation is to get really defensive. The temptation is to lash out. But then Jesus tells us what this is all really about. He says, but love your enemies. Do good to them. And lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High because he is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. He says, be merciful, be like God, because you can be like other people or you can be like God, but you can't do both. You can be like other people, do what they do. You can lash out, you can demand everything back from them, you can get what you're owed, or you can be like God. And in this, he describes the beautiful way that God deals with people, the beautiful way that he deals with us. He returns ungratefulness and wickedness with kindness. He returns lack of mercy with mercy. And he says, when you love your enemies, not just loving the people who love you, that's easy. When you love your enemies, the ones who will never repay it, the ones who won't do good for you, your reward, he says, is going to be great. You're going to show that you really are a child of God. That's how you're going to prove it. And you will be following in his footsteps. Now, I got to tell you, his footsteps are tough to follow in. Think about the footsteps that Jesus had. Think about the places his feet walked. He's kind to those who despise him all the time. He's kind to those who despise him. And when Jesus was crucified, people spat on him. People beat him. There was a group of people who took a crown that they made out of thorns. Can you imagine? And they pushed it down on his head so that his scalp, his head started bleeding. What did he say? Did he call out to God and he said, God, would you do to them the same thing that they've done to me? Would you make sure, even if I die, would you make sure that the same punishment that they're giving to me, would you give that to them? No. He said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. It's amazing. That kind of grace. It's amazing. That kind of forgiveness. And that is the life that he's inviting you and me into. And I know it's difficult, and I know we might fail 1,000 times, but he is inviting us into this life because he knows something that's true. It's that true life happens when we give ourselves away. It's ironic, it's a paradox, but true life happens when I give myself away. True fulfillment happens when I serve other people. True life happens when I set myself and my needs and my what you owe me aside out of love. Who are your enemies? No enemies? Okay. Well, who are the difficult people in your life then? Who are those people? Who do you have conflicts with right now? Jesus commands us to love people who don't love you back. And his command to love people who don't love you back is one of the biggest hallmarks of the Christian faith. It's one of the biggest signs that you are a follower of Jesus. And one of the things that actually, I believe this, it actually makes our faith authentic. When we begin to love people who won't love us back, who will never return that to us, it's one of the things that makes this faith real. It makes it authentic. And it's something that makes Jesus worth following. It's something that makes Jesus somebody who's worth putting your trust in. Everybody's worthy of love, even if they don't act like it. Everybody's worthy of love, he says, even if they don't act like it. Let me give you 3 ways then to get prepared to do this. I think this takes preparation on our part. I think that it takes an attitude of, I know, but even before I have the conflict, even before it happens, I better be prepared. I better make sure that before I step into the situation, I'm ready to do this, because otherwise I'm just going to react the way that I want to react. But let me give you 3 things and 3 ways to prepare. One of them is this, and it's simply something to remember. Remember, would you remember that every single person, before they're a big jerk, okay, before they're a Democrat, before they're a Republican, before they're anybody, every person is a creation of God and therefore deeply loved by him. Every person, no matter what they've done to you, no matter what they've said, no matter what they've done in the world, every single person is deeply loved by him. Would you just remember that? Would you tell yourself that? Would you remind yourself, I'm somebody who's deeply loved by God? And that also means that every single person that I meet eyes with today is somebody who is deeply loved by God first, before they are anybody else, before they were somebody who has conflict with me, before there's somebody who's turning their words against me, before any of that, there's somebody who is deeply loved by God. That's the first thing, to prepare yourself to be somebody who loves your enemy. Would you remember that? The second thing is this: would you assume that you're going to have conflict? Now, I don't mean get defensive. I don't mean act like, oh, I'm scared to go into any relationship or into any place of work or into any school situation or whatever. No, I just mean, would you assume, because we're imperfect people, that conflict is going to happen? It is going to happen. And so it's not a question of if it will, it's just a question of when, and that will help you prepare. I'm just going to assume that there's conflict, so I'm going to get ready to be a person of love and a person of peace. That doesn't mean I'm going to get trampled on. This doesn't mean I'm going to let myself get walked over all the time. There are moments where you've got to decide and make certain decisions in those relationships and in those conflicts about how to act. But would I assume, when I just assume there's going to be conflict, then I get ready. That helps me prepare to love well. The third thing is this: determine that your priority is to imitate not other people, to imitate not the talking head that you see on TV. Your priority is going to be to imitate Jesus. Are you going to fail at that? Yes. Am I going to fail at that? Absolutely. But my priority, my goal, and what he's going to help me do is to imitate him. And when my priority starts there, you'll be amazed at your capacity, at the capacity of your heart for love, not only for the people who love you, but for the people who don't. Do good for those who won't do good for you. Do good for those who won't do good for you. Let's pray. God, this is tough. I just want to say, and I think I'm saying it on behalf of other people who are listening, that this is difficult. And the only way that I can love the people who come at me, who I have conflict with, is through your power and your grace. So would you just move in my life? Would you move in our lives as a church and as a community so that we can love the people who don't love us? And when we do that, God, would you let it be this incredible sign that only you can present, that only you can give, that you're real, that you love us, and that we can love anybody else around us because you loved us first. Thank you for doing that in the life, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus. And we pray in his name. Amen. So we are going to give you one more step. Each week of this series, we've given you a step. And here's one more practical step. We have had some signs that were created, and I want you to take one of these. We want to get you one of these. We want to invite you to put up a sign that simply says either we love you to your community, or we are with you to your community, or this one says we're in this together. It's got our web address on the bottom, but we want to give you a sign, actually, to put in your yard or in front of your neighborhood, or maybe you've got another place in front of your work or somewhere that the community can see. And we just think it's important to declare these things to our community, to speak this into our world, our Lake Norman community right now. So we want to give you one of these, and you can sign up by going to our website, lovelkn.org, and you can figure out a way, you can find out how to do that there. We'll either deliver one to you, or you can come by and pick one up. But we want to give you one of these to express to your neighbors, to express to the people around you that, hey, our church cares about you. We love you. We're going to live up to our name, Love Lake Norman, and we're going to share love to the community around us.
Hey, thanks for being here. We hope that you enjoyed today's worship experience. Hey, jump right now on our website, lovelkn.org, and request one of these signs to put in your yard or in your neighborhood to remind folks that we are here for them and that we love them. Thank you for being here. Have a great day. See you next week.